Do y'all think that the better team won, or was this just a bad game?
They got a cloud hanging over their head.
You execute when you're supposed to execute, and we didn't do that. They were the better team in that game.
All right, well, season 8 is starting, and that number doesn't even sound real. I think I said that last year. Each year, I'm just like, what in the world? This
We're
is
getting
crazy.
old very rapidly, Wes.
I know, right? Hope
I
you
don't
guys.
want to see the progression of like my hair and everything as we've gone through the season.
Well, as you guys saw, we had an awesome new intro. Hope you enjoyed that. We've hit the big time, and we have a really awesome intro now. And there's been so much, and I feel like I definitely say this every year that so much has changed in the off season, but I feel like this year it really has, because there's so much in terms of conference realignment, NIL deals, all of this transfer portal, all this stuff that's gone on during the off season. And this season has definitely ramped up. So we, in getting you prepared for the upcoming season, we're going to do some kind of little mini slices, more digestible episodes, and kind of talk about some of the big stories and that are pertinent to the game now. So this week, we are going to talk about the biggest stories of the summer. And we'll also end the episode with a very special interview with a person from Mississippi State, someone that we have not, a fandom that we have not talked to before and gotten their perspective. So I'm very excited about that interview. So let's talk about some of these stories. Obviously, the first big story of the summer and the off season is Oklahoma and Texas joining the SEC. Obviously, that changes the dynamic. No more divisions, and the championship game will now be decided by the top 2 teams playing each other, as opposed to top of each division, obviously with no division. So I don't know. What do you guys think about Oklahoma and Texas? Is it one of those situations where are they ready for the SEC, or is the SEC ready for them? What do y'all think?
I don't know if anybody's ever ready for the SEC. I don't know if the SEC is ready for the SEC. This is completely new. This is different. I will say, if you're looking at Texas, Sark knows the SEC. Sark's been in the SEC. Sark's won in the SEC. Obviously, he won at Texas. I don't want to talk about it. But he won coaching in the SEC before Texas. So I think he's used to how this goes. He's used to recruiting there. But Oklahoma has also been very successful. And I don't think that there's going to be any hindrance on them as far as it goes on the field necessarily, because I think they have historically been a big program. But I think they are going to be surprised at the culture, the pageantry around the culture in the SEC. It is different. It's different than any other conference. All the conferences are very different in their culture. It's going to be interesting. The rivalries are obviously going to have to be a little bit different. We're going to see some new ones, I think, come out of this, which is kind of cool. There's going to be some brutal schedules. I think Oklahoma, if you look at their schedule, is going to be the one that has to adjust a little bit quicker than Texas does. When it goes to recruiting, I don't think it's anyone is hurting or not hurting as opposed to what they were before. I think both programs have historically done very, very well. The only one that I could see potentially hurting is actually Texas A&M, because now Texas is in the SEC. So anything where A&M said, well, hey, you come play with us, you play in the SEC, that card has been taken away. And the success at Texas is also maybe a little bit better than it is at A&M right now. The transfer portal is going to be crucial. It's crucial for everybody. But I think both coaches at Texas and at Oklahoma are going to have to just embrace it, because we're going to see a lot of transfers. There's going to be guys on both rosters that say, this SEC is not for me. It's not for me. And they're going to want to leave. There are going to be people that want to come into the SEC. I think this year, I know we felt it last year, and I don't know about y'all, but I think we're going to see historic numbers of transfers, because so many conferences look so different. And every conference is now going to have to adjust their culture just a little bit because you have new family members coming in and they're going to change things up.
No doubt. Matt, what do you think?
Well, if you look behind me, you'll notice that this is old and outdated now because you don't see Texas and you don't see Oklahoma up there. I can tell you that based and I know that we talk about Twitter a lot because I spend a lot of time looking around on Twitter. Texas is coming in both guns blazing. Like they're not holding back any punches. They're like, we're going to come in and compete for the SEC championship on day one. Oklahoma fans are a little bit more reserved. I think their expectations are a little bit more tempered. Again, based strictly off what I see through the lens of Vol Twitter. With that in mind, though, I am very curious as to what both of these teams are going to look like playing an SEC schedule. Not to disparage the Big 12, but they don't have exactly the toughest teams on the planet when you're looking top to bottom. I know a lot of people would, especially if you're a Big 12 fan, you'd probably argue, well, Vanderbilt's in the SEC, and depending on the day, South Carolina's in the SEC, and Missouri's in the SEC, and Mississippi State's in the SEC. That's true. But the thing about the SEC that separates itself from everybody else, I feel, is even on its worst day, Vanderbilt's got a chance. It may be the tiniest, minuscule amount of a chance, but they got a shot.
You're saying there's a chance.
There's a chance, and I don't foresee. Oklahoma and Texas being able to come in and just completely run roughshod over the conference. Texas is going to be in for a little bit of a rude awakening. I got a feeling. Again, playing on the road against Bama last year, they probably got a little bit more confidence than they would have otherwise. Or was that at home? I don't recall.
No,
It
they
doesn't
played
matter.
at Bryant-Denny,
Yeah.
Was that at Bryant Denny last year? Okay.
unfortunately.
Fact of the matter is that this is a completely brand new ball game. We're looking at a wide open conference. The divisions are not a thing anymore. You're gonna have to see how things are gonna operate going forward. Sorry, catching a little bit of a cramp. I don't know what that's all about. And I'm very curious to see how they handle the week to week grind of an SEC schedule. It's going to also, and Jesse kind of touched on this, it's going to be very interesting to see what it looks like, what kind of new rivalries we're going to get out of this, what new sort of angles on those matchups is going to look like. I know Tennessee is going to have to go to Oklahoma. Josh Heupel obviously is an Oklahoma alum. He helped lead Oklahoma in in 2000 to the national championship game and won it for him. So there's storylines all over the place. There's so much common history between those two programs and the programs that are in the SEC. And, I'm looking forward to, Oklahoma LSU week. I'm looking forward to Texas and Georgia mixing it up. I'm looking forward to those matchups. I just wish we had more perspective from Texas and Oklahoma fans. We talked to we're going to talk to Mississippi State fan here in a second. It'd be great to have a Texas person on to talk about what it's like coming into the SEC or what an Oklahoma fan thinks about the whole situation. So I'm excited. I know that we poo-pooed a lot about it earlier in the season and talked about how we really felt about Oklahoma and Texas, but I can't wait to see them strap it up and let's go.
Well, and a lot of them are saying that the Red River rivalry is now the
Shootout.
premier
It's a shootout.
Yeah,
Shootout.
is now the premier rivalry in the SEC.
Let's chill out. Let's chill out with that talk, guys. Okay?
Hey, just got to repeat what's being said out there. But
I mean, welcome to the conference and everything, but I just no, sorry.
so Texas
That's
was
going
picked
to be a tough one to take away.
in a preseason, in a preseason SEC poll. Texas was picked to finish with the second most votes to win the national championship behind Georgia.
Interesting.
Oklahoma was picked to finish 8th in the conference. So
Middle of the road. That's interesting.
I mean,
seems the
regardless, I
expectations
think
there more for Texas. Yeah,
I think them joining only gives the SEC as a conference more spots in the playoff, to be honest. I think that's going to help the conference as a whole. And I read something earlier today that kind of blew my mind, just because obviously Nick Saban's not a coach anymore. It's fine. It's fine. The more I say it, the more I
technically we've already
Easy,
talked about
Jesse.
it. It's not
Easy,
a big
Jesse.
off-season story,
it's like
but
a
yes.
Band-Aid. You just have to keep ripping it up and it'll feel better. There's only 3 active head coaches across major college football. I apologize if you're a smaller program, smaller division, and I didn't mention you, but 3 active head coaches across major college football who have won championships entering the 2024 season. That's Kirby Smart at Georgia, UNC's Mac Brown, who won at Texas, and Clemson's Dabo Sweeney. So if you think about it, this is a wide open playing field we have going into not only the SEC, but just college football in general. We are about to embark on a new journey of, all these programs, all these new conferences, and what football is going to look like for the next several years, hopefully.
Right.
Listen, just to kind of put my 2 cents out there one more time, I think Colorado is going to win the whole daggone thing this year. I think Deion Sanders has created a monster over there in Boulder. I think they're going to win the whole daggone thing. Go ahead and give them the trophy.
According to CFB 25, what is their ranking? Aren't they like?
I think they're top 12, top 15.
Isn't
They were
their
up there.
offense like top 10?
Yeah. And
like
this is a
number
team
8
that
or
went
something?
4-8
I don't know.
last season. Yeah.
It's fun times.
Not to mention, there's been some more conversation that's come out the last couple days about recruits like having a fight like upperclassmen to prove their manhood and stuff. Like, the stories that you were getting out of Boulder are crazy. Like, I don't know what Deion's doing. Anyway, this isn't a Mountain West podcast, so
I mean, who knows? They might be in the SEC eventually. So
Pac 16, whatever it
No,
is.
they joined somebody.
Are they in the Big 12 now?
Yeah.
Look.
I think
I don't
it's
remember
Big 12.
exactly.
They joined somebody right before all the madness happened.
yeah, I believe you're correct. While you look that up, Matt, so you added this item: trouble at UGA. More than a dozen players arrested for vehicular issues, DUI, failure to maintain lane, speeding, etc. 3 players arrested in July, including Ra Thomas. I think does that count twice? Is he counted twice? Is that where there's 3, or are there 3 completely different instances?
No, there were two. There were
it
two.
happened to him twice.
Well, yes, but no, there was
It's
2
not funny.
other UGA football players that were involved in some shenanigans, again, dealing with a motor vehicle, and then rah in conjunction with all that other
Sure,
stuff.
yeah, ETN's one of them. Is there, okay, you're saying, is there a culture problem at UGA, or is the Athens Clarke County Sheriff's Office out to get the Bulldogs? Hey, maybe a little both. I don't know. I think it's important to, and I definitely, I really want to know what y'all think about this, because obviously I'm biased with my viewpoint, but I think it's important to react in the proper way when stuff like this happens. And obviously, when something as bad as Ra Thomas's stuff happened, there's no question you're off the team, and that's been done. So some of these others, I don't know, especially some of the speeding things. You had a good point, Matt. Why don't they just Uber everywhere or something like?
It's an NIL deal that writes itself. Like
Yeah.
it's a great idea. I don't know why we're not doing that.
It may need to be, as part of the NIL deal, it may need to be like a requirement. Like, dude, if you're going to get paid all this money, you're required to not drive yourself or something.
UGA players, stop stressing out your player development personnel. Please stop. You are causing them to work overtime, and they work so hard to put together your freshman orientation, to have their office open for you, and to make sure that you have everything you need. They make sure you have financial literacy programs. They make sure you get to class, that you have a good GPA, that you have a nutritionist, all of the things. If you needed them to help you apply for a credit card, they would. If you needed them to get you an Uber at 2 a.m., I promise you, your player development personnel would do it for you. Stop stressing them out. You
Sure
need
beats
to do
the
better.
alternative.
You need to do better. I will say my opinion, and it's changed, right? I have very much been a no nonsense person. I still feel like I'm a no nonsense person. But I recently watched this clip again, and maybe I'm in my Saban feelings, or maybe because I'm becoming an adult and I'm starting to understand that people in their 20s don't have fully formed brains, and I'm starting to see that. But I see Nick Saban's clip of, what would you have me do? Do you want me to cut him from the team? He loses his scholarship. He loses his future for, a speeding ticket. Do you want me to do that? Or would you rather me teach him a lesson, punish him appropriately, and then allow him to grow as a man and grow as an individual and bring him up right, you know? And so I see that, and I see the players that not only Bama has done that with, but other programs have done that as well. And, you know, I see 18 to 22-year-old guys, and not just guys, girls too, and they're dumb. They do dumb things. They feel invincible. And I can only imagine that the feeling of invincibility is so much more when you're on a stage like that. And they do really dumb things despite having all those resources. So I understand punishing them 1,000%. And I hope that Kirby Smart, and I can absolutely wholeheartedly believe that the player personnel and player development personnel are going to make sure that these players don't do that again. As far as the DUI, speeding, all of that. Now, Ra Thomas, appropriate to cut him from the team. That is no longer a immaturity issue. That's a criminal cruelty issue.
It's a bad human issue is what that is.
That's a bad human issue. And you can't fix that, right? Like you can't teach that through running sprints. That's not gonna work.
Right.
So I don't necessarily think it's a culture problem at UGA. I think because of what college football is starting to look like now, and everybody's trying to react to it, everybody's trying to come up with a program to rein in these egos and rein in all of this invincibility and entitlement that comes with transfer portal, NIL, all of this stuff. I think we're going to see it across programs where these young men feel invincible, they feel a little entitled, and they do some dumb things. And the adults surrounding them are going to try to catch up and keep this from happening. But, you know, they have a million other things on their plates. They can only do what they can do. So stop stressing people out, young men. Grow up.
Matt, you kind of brought this to our attention. What's your take on it?
So, I have to take my Tennessee fan hat off for a second and be a little bit analytical about this, because the Tennessee fan in me wants this to be the end of the show and the bricks are coming off and this is just a sign of the times. But then I have to look at it analytically and go, this is something that's been endemic to big 5-star programs for decades. This is not a new phenomenon. You don't even have to go back that far. Florida State in the early 2000s and the 90s. Tennessee in the 90s, and heck, they used to have a thing called the Fulmer Cup where they would track how many times a player for a football team would get in trouble, and then they would award points depending on what it was. It was called the Fulmer Cup because it was back when Tennessee used to have problems with this stuff too. Like these big league programs are going to have stuff like this. You get these 4- and 5-star recruits. They're used to everybody worshiping the ground they walk on. They're going to have an air of superiority. It's just, especially when you get into certain mindsets, like you can't be you can't be self-assured and play quarterback. Like you can't double guess yourself. You have to have some confidence. Same thing if you're a wide receiver or some of these other skill positions. Like you're gonna have to be a little cocky. It's just the nature of the beast. With that being said, I think there's a lot to say about that. This is nothing new. This happens. This sort of situation goes on. On the paper, on our little script, I said, "Is this a culture problem?" No, I don't think it is. I think this just boils down to young kids with too much time or too much money or too much access to stuff that they don't need, making dumb decisions. They're teenagers, practically, most of them. Some of them are still in their early 20s. You take any three of us and look at some of the decisions we made when we were 20, 21, 22. I can guarantee you they weren't great. Now, I didn't get any DUIs or anything, but still, you make bad decisions when you're young. It's part of growing up. That being said, I do think that Georgia has to kind of look at the situation and kind of realize, oh, okay, we need to, twist this or tweak this or figure out some way to keep them accountable. I think there needs to be some upperclassmen leadership that kind of takes these younger guys and says, hey, listen, if you're going to be stupid, at least give me a phone call before you get really dumb, so I can kind of keep track of you. I just feel like this is something that one of two things is going to happen. One, we continue to see little things going forward and this kind of gets corrected. Or two, this is going to spiral out of control and we're going to get worse things. I think Kirby, as much as I hate to say it, has a pretty good handle on the program. I don't foresee this being a huge problem going forward. I think it'll get fixed. But it does kind of make make you kind of go, we need to calm down a little bit. We need to make some better decisions. On a separate note, and I just want to throw this out there, there has been a lot of conversation, and again, I go back to Twitter because I'm on Twitter a lot and I see things. There's been a lot of people that are blaming the Athens Clarke County Sheriff's Office for a lot of this stuff, and I'm like, guys, you can't blame them for enforcing the law. That's their entire job. They're not out to get anybody. They're out there paying guys that are making stupid decisions before somebody gets seriously hurt. Kind of like what happened a couple years ago when you had a couple people get killed in a racing incident in Athens. Like they're hyper aware of some of the stupidity that's around this program. So I mean,
We also
you
just
can't
had a murder on
right.
right off UGA's campus. I mean, the police
There's
around
been a
that
lot going on in Athens.
are heightened. And if anything, we should probably be looking at the police in every other college town who is not giving those young men tickets when they need to.
Tuscaloosa.
Oh, for sure. Oh, for sure.
Excuse me.
Every other place, 1,000%. We need to be doing that. But I tell people from other states, and if you are someone who's going to be in Georgia, if you're going to the University of Georgia, wherever you're going, and you're not from the state of Georgia, there's one thing I know. The police, the sheriff's department, and GSP work harder than anybody else. And by working harder, I mean they sit in their cars and they are trying to find something to pull you over for. You may have not even fully done it. You may have just thought about doing it. You're going to get pulled over. Okay.
Heck,
I've never
they
seen
put
more
up cameras just to hit people while they go to
everywhere.
school.
Right.
I've never seen more police presence in a state than I have in the state of Georgia. They will get you.
They will get you.
Time. Every
Yep.
time. I've had
Yep.
several tickets. We'll get you.
You know, knock wood, I haven't had one in a while, but there was a stretch there. There was a stretch there. I think I reached the double digits in number of tickets. So we won't talk about
Ouch.
that. Yeah. So, all right. So,
Wes, I've ridden with you before. You don't drive like a madman.
like I said, it's been a while. But what did you say earlier? We
stupid
all
things.
this, yeah, we did stupid things when we were younger. All right. So
Wes got in his car and he turned on like Linkin Park in like 2006. It just went wild.
No, Wes
Yeah.
just probably gave a GSP officer an unhappy face, and they're like, you know what, pull him over.
Pull him over.
This guy. Yep. All right. So I'm excited to talk about this one. This will be the first season with the 12-team playoff format. So what's that going to look like? All right. So let's just kind of run over it real quick. So the 12 participating teams will be the 5 conference champions ranked highest by the CFP selection committee, plus the next 7 highest ranked teams. Ranking of the teams will continue to be done by a selection committee, so that's not going away. The 4 highest ranked conference champions will be seeded 1 through 4 and will receive a first round bye. The 5th conference champion will be seeded where it was ranked, or at number 12 if it is outside the top 12 rankings. That's an interesting twist there. So non-conference champions ranked in the top 4 will be seeded beginning at number 5. Because of this, the seeding 1 through 12 could look different than the final rankings. The 8 teams seeded number 5 through 12 will play in a first round with the higher seeds hosting the lower seeds, either on campus or at other sites designated by the higher seeded institution. Number 12, for example, number 12 at number 5, number 11 at number 6, number 10 at 7, 9 at 8. Yeah, that's kind of how it's going to look, just kind of at a glance. I'm pretty excited about this. It's going to be a lot. I mean, I think there's still going to be a lot of drama. It's just going to be different drama. It's not going to be your top 4 and, fighting over that 5th spot. It's going to be still drama, but just a little bit different twist to it. What do y'all think?
Listen, I think this, because I'm looking at the calendar, the first round of playoffs starts in December 20th on a Friday, and then December 21st on a Saturday. I honestly think Christmas is going to be so much fun this year, because if you think about the matchups you're going to get, like I've been playing, we were talking about earlier, I've been playing College Football 25. That just came out. We did a live stream, by the way. I don't know if you guys saw it or not. I went 1-1. I think West lost both games. It's not important.
I did.
Um,
No, I
you
beat
did.
Billy.
It's okay,
I was
Wes.
I was
Oh,
1 and
that's
1 as
right. You
well.
did beat Billy. Oh, that's right at the very last second. But
Billy had
listen,
never played before.
I've run a couple seasons in college football 25, which has this format, and like some of the matchups you get are psychotic. Like Oregon at Georgia, TCU hosting like Oklahoma. Um, just ridiculous things you would get. And granted, I don't really agree with the way that we're doing conference champions. I really feel like it should be 1 through 12. One should play 12, two should be whatever, or vice versa. Like I really don't think that the conference champions should get a bump on that. In fact, I don't think we should play conference championships going forward anymore. But that's beside the point. Um, but there's so many cool matchups you're going to get out of this, and it's 3 straight weekends of fantastic football teams playing other fantastic football teams. Everybody's been complaining that this is going to water down the sport. Shut up. It's not watering down anything. It's giving us really good matchups and really good football to watch through the entire week of Christmas. I'm excited. I'm all for it. Bring it on.
You're gonna have
Yeah.
something new to argue with your family about during the holidays, and that's the
Yeah.
gift that keeps on giving. You know,
Beats arguing about other things, I suppose. Why not argue about football? So
why not? Why argue about the ham when you can argue about a conference championship and the fact that, Notre Dame may not be in the top 4?
exactly.
But they're already in the top 10 according to the coaches poll that came out this
gosh.
afternoon.
I
I don't
mean,
know if y'all saw
that was a given. They always are, but
They're they're at 8, I think.
they can't be top 4.
So does that just mean that Notre Dame can just lose sooner on a national stage than in previous years? So I'm thrilled for home playoff games for these teams. Like, can you imagine the atmosphere at a
Those
college
places are gonna be
campus?
rocking.
I mean, if you thought it was crazy before, now you're vying for a playoff spot or moving further in the playoffs. It's I can't imagine.
You happen to be, I don't know, let's say like UCF, and you've got to go play at in Penn State in December.
Right.
And you better believe they're gonna white that thing out. They're gonna play Mo Bamba. It's gonna be crazy.
It's good. I mean, but you're freezing. You now have this whole seasonal thing that can affect you too, because the higher seed gets to pick either home or a designated site, which I'm like, could we just everybody just designates like, I want to go play in Vegas. Let's go play in Vegas.
Yeah, I don't know if there are limitations to that or not, but I don't know.
No.
Just like you're talking about, just these crazy matchups, teams that may ordinarily never play each other. All of a sudden we'll see those matchups, and I'm super excited for that.
But listen, just to kind of throw this out there, if I go off of just the coaches poll that's out right now, the first matchup right off the bat would be Alabama hosting LSU.
Mm-hmm.
The next matchup would be Mississippi hosting Missouri. Notre Dame hosting Florida State. Like those are some crazy matchups.
That Notre Dame Florida State would be nuts.
Mm-hmm.
That late in the season with because the thing about good football teams is they get better as the season goes along. If they're a really good football team, they're going to find ways to get better. Now they may not put up as good numbers. They may have injuries, but like you're talking about some Premier League teams going at it like hardcore over a chance to get to the next round of playoffs. That first round is going to be crazy.
We finally get to experience in football what basketball has been experiencing on a smaller level.
We get Christmas madness. Christmas madness is going to be Christmas craziness. They need to come up with something to describe that first round, because that first round is going to be psychotic. It's like Oregon having to travel to Alabama, like Georgia if they have an off year having to travel to Notre Dame, like that.
Yeah,
it's gonna be some good stuff.
It is. I can't wait for it. All right, let's move to the head coaching hires. Obviously, for the SEC, there are 3: Kalen DeBoer, Washington to Alabama; Jeff Levy from Oklahoma as the offensive coordinator to Mississippi State; and Mike Elko from Duke to Texas A&M. I'm not really sure how I want to frame this, because obviously we've kind of talked about each one of these individually. Is there one of these that is just glaring? Which one do you think might have it toughest in terms of, fulfilling expectations?
Yeah, definitely DeBoer.
I mean, that's definitely the expectations are definitely high. I think the others will have a tough sledding ahead for them. But in terms of expectations, Deborah more so. Matt.
For expectations, I think Elko, as far as what he has to work with,
Mm,
he's got a higher hill to climb
mhm.
to
They
get
had a
to
lot of kids transfer out of Aggie Land
Yeah.
too. They had
they
a
did.
ton of kids at the portal.
They
Kids,
did. So
coaches, he had to get, obviously he had his own coaches to hire on there. So it's kind of a gutting of the system over there. So
can only go up.
yeah, it's true. And then I kind of had to put this one, kind of a funny one. So Bobby Petrino hired as the Arkansas OC. Hopefully, he can stay out of trouble this go around. But maybe the fireworks that they need there, because obviously they need some kind of catalyst in Arkansas. Is that
It's a motorcycle.
not the motorcycle?
Yeah, we're breaking back out the motorcycle. Petrino going to bring the motorcycle back, baby.
If there's one thing we know about football, and specifically, let's say SEC football, I think we can say it here. Our memories can be short if we think you can win.
No doubt.
That's a good
Hello,
point.
Petrino, and hello, Hugh Freeze.
Solid
Yep.
point. It's a really solid point.
Winning makes you forget a lot of things.
Our morals only extend as far as a winning
Just a
can
bit.
go.
Just a bit.
Yeah.
I listen. I hope this works out for Arkansas because again, I think I speak for all three of us when we say we've got a soft spot for Sam Pittman. We really want Arkansas to be good. And their offense last year was, what do the kids like to say? Dog water? Is that the right word terminology?
This is the McDonald's Wi-Fi.
Their Arkansas was not. Their offense was not good. So. And Petrino has been proven in the past to be a decent offensive coordinator. I don't remember what his last year at A&M looked like, but because I think he was at A&M prior to
Yeah, it's a lot of things
them
in
getting
flux
the
there
boot.
too. Kind of
There's a
hard to
lot going
evaluate.
on there. But I mean, Petrino's proven he can put an offense together. So you just got to hope they have the Jimmies and Joes that can hang. So we'll see.
Yeah,
Just stay off the bike, Bobby.
just stay off the bike.
Off the bike. Stay away from secretaries in the office. Just
All staff.
Be-
All
focus
between
on
the
football.
between
Focus on football, please.
the kids in Athens and Petrino in Arkansas, just stay off the roads.
Stay off the
So,
roads. Nobody go out there. Just stay at the house.
yeah, exactly. So that kind of does it for our big stories of the summer. And now something that we're kind of excited about is we have an interview with Emily. She's Mississippi State alum, and we rarely get to talk to anyone from Mississippi State. I think all of us were saying we don't really know hardly anybody else who went to
She's
Mississippi
She's the
State.
only one
Yeah.
I know.
Yeah, so really excited to talk to her, and I guess without further ado, let's go ahead and get into that interview.
All right, guys. Well, thanks for coming on the show, Emily. Emily, this is everybody. Everybody, this is Emily. Emily has agreed to come on and give us some perspective of what it's like to be a Mississippi State fan. We don't have a lot of those in Georgia. In fact, Emily, I think you're probably the only Mississippi State fan I know, alum. Excuse me, an alum. Excuse me, I got that one right. But Emily is a fellow teacher. She also has to deal with the small children that we have to try to educate every day, and she has a background, a pretty extensive one at Mississippi State. So, Emily, I'll let you kind of tell everybody what's going on.
So yeah, I graduated from Mississippi State in 2017. My mom's side of the family is actually about 45 minutes from Mississippi State's campus. So growing up, it wasn't a shock that we had connections to the university. Meaning that like my uncle went there, my great aunt went there, my mom took classes there at some point. So everyone at one point had stepped onto campus. But with that, I like told my parents in like fourth grade, I'm like, I'm gonna go to Mississippi State. And they're like, oh, okay, sure. And then I ended up doing it. Years later, when I applied to colleges later on, I applied to two, and Mississippi State was one, got into it first and was like, immediate yes, toured the campus, absolutely loved it. Starkville is a very beautiful place. If you have not been, I highly recommend. Very good food. too. But mainly my mom's side of the family is definitely what drew me into the university. And also I danced growing up, and that was just something I always wanted to do at the university, was go and dance. And I ended up getting to do that for 2 years. So I had like 2 years of the average student experience, which was really nice. And then 2 years on the field, on court side and stuff like that, and just really enjoyed it. And I've gone back a couple times since, and it's really been fun.
Cool. Just out of curiosity, what was the other school you applied to?
Georgia Southern.
Okay, well, everybody gets into Southern, so that's not a big deal. So obviously you chose it because of the familial ties there. I think a lot of us, our fandoms kind of stem from, well, my uncle pulled for Tennessee, and my uncle pulled for Bama, and my grandfather pulled yada yada. So that makes a lot of sense. So you said that you were on the dance team for 2 years. So can you kind of walk us through like what that entailed exactly?
So that meant, so we performed at all of the home football games,
Hmm.
occasionally away games. Usually those were for upperclassmen and returning members. So I got to do that my senior year at Mississippi State. Um, Men's and women's home basketball games, but we did split those up, thankfully, just because there were so many. My senior year, I got to perform once at Duty Noble, so at the baseball stadium, and once at the time volleyball stadium, but that has now been demolished, I believe, and they've rebuilt another one. Um, but so just a little bit of everything, basically wherever they said, hey, we need y'all to perform at, we went. It is a little bit more involved now because when I was there, we were under spirit group, so we were not totally under athletics. Now they are officially under athletics, so with that comes a lot of perks, but they do a lot more. But most
Gotcha.
of our stuff was like worked around football season and basketball season when I was there.
Okay. So speaking about football season, can you kind of take us like what are some of your favorite game day experiences, things that you remember? Again, Starkville is pretty loud with all the cowbells, so I'm sure you've got plenty of stories about crazy, obnoxious fans with cowbells. But kind of walk us through what do you think your favorite memory from those days are?
My favorite memory for sure, as far as being on the field, we have the maroon and white chant. So all you have is one side goes maroon, the other side goes white, and it just goes back, forth, back, forth. And my junior year, they actually took it away my senior year, and I was devastated from pregame, where we literally had signs out, the cheerleaders had signs, and they had the maroon side and the white side, and all you heard for like the first like 20 seconds part of pregame was maroon, white, and like I just remember getting full body chills junior year. It was also a very freakishly cold first game. It was like at 7 o'clock against LSU. It was also one we thought we were going to win in the first half. That completely changed. Second half, as Mississippi State tends to do. But the maroon and white chant definitely is one. The junction is beautiful for tailgating. College game day coming in on occasion was a lot of fun. And SEC game day came down a lot. I got to meet Tim Tebow once, but that was actually thanks to my dad, not actually.
Not that impressive to be frank, but go ahead. Go off, sis.
It was one cool thing I got to do. But getting to like stand on like the game day stage was really fun. Meeting him and the other crew and cast and stuff. Um, but definitely those memories for sure. So when game day and college game day and SEC game day came in, always a fun time. It was really packed, but a lot of fun for sure.
So when remember, I think Mullen was
The coach
just about to head out. He was there when you were
just
there?
out. He was there the
Okay.
entire time I was. It was very much a shock the years after when he left.
Yeah, I would imagine him moving to Florida was a little bit of a kick in the tail. Well, funny you mentioned the maroon and white chants, and I kind of want to talk about what are some other because one of the big things we talk about on here on the podcast is we like to talk about traditions. We like to talk about things that they've done them 1,000 times at other schools, and we don't really know a lot about Mississippi State's traditions. So, can you give us a couple?
Uh, Cowbells is
Yeah,
obviously the
we know
biggest.
about that one.
Cowbells are the biggest thing. Every single pregame, they actually play the clip from SNL with Will Ferrell.
Uh,
So that is like always played during pregame. They changed it up to a different one, I think with like Jimmy Fallon, I think recently. When I went in, I think it was 2020, I went to the Mississippi State Arkansas game. Actually on the Arkansas side of things, which was really weird, but to Davis Wade. Um, they had changed it, I want to say, from the original like SNL clip to a different one, I want to say. But they love that. The obviously the famous Maroon Band is huge in Starkville, so that's going to be the university band. They spell out state. That's one of the biggest things is they run out onto the field, they spell out state. And so we would do a pregame with them. Some girls I know had to like sprint a whole football field in like 30 seconds. Don't I was lucky enough I did not have to do that. I was thankfully always towards the end. So I lucked out in that regard. I'm trying to think of other specific game day traditions because Cowbells is what we are known for.
I'm a little shocked you haven't mentioned the live mascot. Is it Bully? Is that his
Oh,
name?
Bully. Yes. Okay. Bully. And oh gosh, I don't even know because Jack just retired, who was the last live mascot. I don't even
Mm.
know the son that took over for him off the top of my head, but I have met the trainer for the live
Mm.
mascots. She is really great. They are always very, very sweet. Um, I know my favorite little fact, and it's like I feel bad for saying this with UGA fans because I know Uga is not the most physically strong at times. And
Shots fired.
he has a very nice doghouse. All I remember is from my freshman government class, my professor would bring in the live mascot every single semester to his class. And one thing he would always bring up, he's like, oh, if it was a dog fight between Bully and Uga, Bully would win because Uga is so inbred for the white coat. Probably not so much anymore.
That
I
checks
wouldn't.
out.
But
Uga does look like he's about 2 cheeseburgers away from a massive coronary. So I
hey,
mean,
I would love to be Uga in Athens if I was over there. I want to scooch on into that air-conditioned ice box of a doghouse. That sounds great. But Bully did stand on the sidelines, along with our mascot, like suit mascot, Bully as well. But they just added in another live, not live mascot as in like a dog, but one of the costumed up ones. They have Bully and I think Belle. So they have
that makes sense.
girl bulldog and a boy bulldog now. And they also ride. So Bully does have a doghouse. The mascot does, and he rides it in during pregame, typically, is what
That's
he'll
pretty
do.
cool.
Do you guys have any
So-
tailgating traditions? Because I know at least for us at Bama, tailgating is a whole experience. It's a big thing. And I think that's the same across any SEC school. Is, when I lived up north and worked with Big Ten schools, they were just amazed at the pageantry of our tailgating, whereas theirs is very like go out, smash beers, put some broths on the grill because it's cold. We don't really have that, but we have this very big like pageantry of tailgating. So I'd love to know more about what tailgating is like in Starkville.
Oh, absolutely. It's definitely, I don't know if it's as big as Bama, but you definitely have people, they're like, this has been my family's tailgating spot for decades. I lucked out my last 2 years being on dance. We had like a dedicated person that would go out and they would set up our spot literally to the right of the Bully statue, which is like right when you're walking up to the stadium. So we lucked out on a really nice spot. But people have their spots and they've had them for decades and they go out there so early, if not the night before, to set up. I mean, they got their plasma screen TVs, they decorate them to the nines. I know even our dance moms would like put on themes to our tailgate tent week after week. Like I think my very last game at Davis Wade, they did like a fair theme and like they had like a whole fair wheel, like Ferris wheel, like built in the decorations. It was wild. So definitely intense still, but it's more definitely like my family's been here for decades. We've always gotten the same tailgate spot for when I talk to people, and obviously have the fraternities and sororities that like to scope out their spots and everything as well. But it's definitely, I've noticed it's definitely familial traditions for sure. Played a hand in that.
It's funny.
Oh, sorry, Wes.
No, you're good. I forget what game it was last year, but it was a night game. It must have been on ESPN because I think it was Chris Fowler calling it, and he was talking with the Mississippi State. I believe it was their AD, and he was talking about, we were talking about mascots earlier, and he was talking about the mascots and Bulldog mascots, and he mentioned, and he probably shouldn't have phrased it this way, but that the Mississippi State Bulldog was the lesser known Bulldog, and the AD took a great offense to that, and like in the booth on
As
the
he
spot,
should.
and yeah, I was gonna say if he would have said it to me, the same reaction. So, yeah, it is kind of funny, similar mascots, but definitely different. So,
Oh, very
yeah,
much so. I just say we're really nice.
yeah.
Really nice in Starkville.
Oh, and
Yeah,
also,
we
I also was talking about Starkville. I can't let this get away without asking, Stark Vegas, is that just a fun term to try to get people to come in because it sounds exciting, or is that legit? Like, is it really like a kind of a crazy place?
It's definitely not anywhere close to Vegas. Now the Stark Vegas just mantra definitely does take hold. I mean, there are different paintings throughout Starkville. They have like the chains that sometimes the football players will wear that have like the Stark Vegas logo attached to them. So it's very much a part of the culture game day wise. But is Starkville a crazy party town? I mean, depends on who you ask. I mean, if they're from like some really little town,
Right.
maybe. But the Cotton District is about the craziest it gets. That's like the place where all the bars are. And I know they've added a couple more bars since I've graduated, but it's all in the same place still. So it's nothing insane by any means. It's very tame.
What are those key like game day spots in downtown? Like for us, we have the strip in downtown, and there's, for me, I can think of probably four off the top of my head that like these are the bars you go to on game day if it's an away game, or if it's a home game and you're not going in or you're pre-gaming. Like, what are the Mississippi State Starkville spots that we need to know?
Well, all of them are in the Cotton District, so they're literally right off campus. I think it's 612 or 621. You have Fountain, which has a giant fountain in front of it. And these are literally, when I tell you, like steps away from each other. They are right next to each other. I know they've added a couple more that people tend to frequent since I've graduated, but I do not know their names. I also was not the biggest bar scene person. To get me out after dancing for 4 hours on game day was a feat. I did go out, I know once, but again, it was always to the Cotton District. That's always where typically everyone went on game day weekend, even if we weren't playing in town. We have like a festival. Oh, I'm trying to think of the name. Like Dog Fest. Or Bulldog Bash. Bulldog Bash is held like the first SEC weekend, and they literally close down the Cotton District, and that's where they hold it. So that is literally the place to go as far as like bars and nightlife in Starkville. Now, downtown Starkville does have excellent food, and you have like the Cliche bookstore and things like that, and like more of your local shops. And I mean, but they are phenomenal. Starkville Cafe is my absolute favorite. To me, that is a breakfast must if you come to Starkville. People do try to pack it out on game day, but if you get in, I mean, good for you. But local food, locally made, sweetest ladies you could possibly imagine, and just the best breakfast you will ever eat. Definitely, for sure. Say Stromboli's is another classic. They actually closed and then opened back up. They're right off the edge of the Cotton District. But they thankfully just opened back up. Their cookie dough bites, next level. So if you want something really good late at night, say that's where you need to go. Also cheese fries at the Ben's window. That's like always a classic. But if you haven't had a little something, maybe to indulge upon, I've heard they don't taste as good. So
Yeah, we had one of those. It's called Quick Grill. It's only open, I think it starts at like 10 p.m. or midnight, and it's a cinder block shack.
Yep.
You have to consume a few adult beverages. It's not
the
for a
the
zero.
health inspector probably has a field day with that place when it's
Oh,
still
I don't
when
think
it's
the
open
health
for a
inspector's
minute.
ever gone. You have to have at least above a zero BAC. Like you can't go.
Conveniently, is
They're
never
they're
open
using
when the health inspector comes by. So
They're not.
yeah using the same grease from 1966.
Absolutely.
So I kind of want to pivot the conversation a little bit back to the football program. Obviously, you were in town when Dan Mullen packed up the truck in the middle of the night, went to the University of Florida.
I was graduated at that point, but my
You still had your finger on the pulse, but yeah. So I was kind of curious, like, what did most of your friends and other people kind of say about that? And feel free to speak candidly. We talk bad about cousin Eddie all the time on here, so.
Uh, we were not happy, mainly because not only did us as fans find out on Twitter that he was leaving, through their little Florida editing Photoshop stuff, his players also found out via
Mm,
Twitter. And
not a good
that's where
look.
a lot of the animosity came from. I know like the quarterback at the time, I think it was Nick Fitzgerald technically was starting still at that point. Um, he had posted something about it, and I was like, there's no way. There's no way he just up and left this team and did not say anything. He did. The AD at Florida, I don't know if he's still there, Scott Strickland. He was at Mississippi State, was the AD while I was there. Actually left for Florida my senior year, and his family didn't immediately go. I actually taught one of his daughters during my student teaching. And I was like, oh, are you going to like join your dad? And she goes, no, we're going to wait until the year's out. And I'm like, oh, that makes sense. And then they're going to head to Gainesville. But Scott Strickland, after he got Dan Mullen hired back into Florida, literally people kept constantly changing his Wikipedia page. So a ton of the animosity went to Scott Strickland, like kept changing his job occupation to trader.
Ooh,
So because he also graduated from Mississippi State too. So that didn't help. But just a lot of animosity. People
understandably.
were not happy with Dan, even though he had like you had the people who were like, and I saw their side. It's like he's given us how many years, how much success. He took us to #1, and everyone kind of was like, well, forget that. He left terribly and just complete bumped it. But like at times, like did like my parents joke around and be like, oh, if like he tried to come back, like would you say no? I'm like, no. I would be like, come on back, Starkville misses you. But I don't think like as the years went on, that definitely changed amongst a lot of people. To where we were like, have fun in Florida. I cannot say I wasn't happy to see him get fired from Florida.
A little
It
bit
was
of Schadenfreude there. I think that's completely understandable.
a little bit. It was a little bit of karma. But did he give us a great program while I was there? Yes. I mean, still several heart attacks, of course. While I was still there. I mean, even my senior year, we lost to South Alabama, my first game, senior year. It was awful in the heat.
Yeah.
Literally, I think it was the last second, and they kicked a field goal and we lost. And literally we all have like my class, I feel like graduating from Mississippi State, it's like everyone has like just PTSD from it, and we're like anytime we see South Alabama mentioned, it's like absolutely not.
Start getting a tick.
Yep, absolutely. But I mean, he gave us a lot of great memories. Was I the happiest with him leaving? Absolutely not. Just because the way he left. My family from Mississippi, shockingly enough, are actually huge Notre Dame fans. So when Brian Kelly up and left Notre Dame and went to LSU, they finally understood the pain as well.
Well, as a Tennessee fan, I know what that's like because Lane Kiffin did it to us, and when he got fired and left on the tarmac at SC, I think we all felt better too. But I get that. So let's talk about another Mississippi State coach of the late Mike Leach. I think we all everybody I've ever talked to, and especially the three of us here on the podcast, have a soft spot in our heart for Mike Leach. So what was your feelings about Mike Leach and his unfortunate passing?
We loved him definitely in Starkville, even though his hiring was after I passed. I mean, it was a long awaited thing because it felt like, I mean, just it was door after rotating door after Mullen left. It felt like we couldn't have a solid person. And I remember when they made the hiring announcement, the first thing that like everyone started spreading around was like a compilation of him just making like crazy comments
Hmm.
in
We
interviews.
played some of those here on the
Yeah,
show.
we sure did.
Hey, we enjoyed him. The one game I was able to make it down during his tenure sadly was not the greatest, I don't think. I think it was like his first year at state, but every subsequent year, I mean, it was just great. Like people loved him in Starkville, really welcomed him on very quickly. And it was one of those things that was so unexpected. I remember like just when like headlines started rolling through and we were just like, there's no way. Like that's just so random that just something like that happened. And especially with the bowl game and stuff, it was definitely freakishly timed that we went down to Tampa Bay for the bowl game for sure, with the pirate ship and the Buccaneers and all that
It was a
stuff.
great game, by the way. It was a love. I
Oh
loved
yeah,
that game. A lot
I
of fun.
mean, the win from that was wild. I mean, I remember thinking, I'm like, this was a solid win. It's one of those things like definitely the team I feel like needed more than anything. Because I could not imagine actually being a student at the time and watching that go down in Starkville, but he was very beloved. I mean, people still talk about his time in Starkville, even though it wasn't as long as some of his other coaching stints. I mean, people talk about him as if he was there as long as Dan Mullen. I mean, people adore the guy.
Yeah, and Mike Leach had an impact on every program he touched. You look at, and again, there was some bad stuff at Texas Tech, but it is what it is. But he made Texas Tech a program. It was Washington State, I think, wasn't it? Where he had his impact, and then obviously there in
and one of the
Starkville
best
as
speeches
well.
of all time when he was
Oh my
talking about
God,
which Pac-12 mascot would
just
win in a
phenomenal.
battle royale,
Yeah,
and he just went through each one.
Yeah,
His wedding
losing
advice will
him
go
hurt quite a
down
bit.
in history. Every bride will always go back to his wedding advice.
Yep. Yep.
What a guy. What a
Yeah,
guy.
what a guy. So, speaking of that ReliaQuest Bowl win, you had Zach Arnett take over the program for a while. Unfortunately, things didn't pan out for Arnett, and you end up going with Jeff Levy, who remind me if I'm correct. I think he got hired this past November, so he's the new head coach. I think he was if I remember correctly, he was the offensive coordinator at Oklahoma. So hopefully going to bring a little bit of juice, so to speak, to the offense. How optimistic do you feel about Jeff Levy and what he's going to hopefully do in Starkville?
Pretty optimistic. Zach Arnett, I definitely feel was a good hire for the time. Like no one was against it by any
Yeah.
means. Obviously, mid-season things just weren't the greatest. He's a defensive guy, and just I feel like swapping around stuff that Mike Leach had already put into place and that was successful wasn't the best on him, and probably didn't look the best for him. Now with Jeff Levy, I'm excited because he is another offensive guy, and I do think that's going to work well. In that regard, being the head coach, and just I guess it just seems to help. I mean, Mississippi State loves offensive coordinators and quarterback coaches historically. I mean, at least the last decade, we just love those guys, and they tend to do very well in Starkville. So I'm pretty optimistic. I mean, after last season, I feel like we can only go up, hopefully.
That's completely fair. Fantastic.
I do have
Guys,
I have a question, just because it's one that I never have attended this game, and obviously for all of us, we have our rivalries, some of which are between our own teams, but for me, it's the Iron Bowl, right? It's Auburn and Alabama, but for you, it's the Egg Bowl. So I'd love to hear about what it's like to, number one, be at an Egg Bowl and how that rivalry is. If you can just describe what it's like to be in the throngs of that rivalry.
Oh, absolutely. Egg Bowl time of year is always the most intense time of year. Obviously I got to see it my freshman year, because obviously it's back and forth on who hosts. Freshman year was in Starkville. That was still the age of Tyler Russell and Dak Prescott swapping out as quarterbacks. If you can believe that. Dak was not always starting. Tyler Russell did swap in and out, and Dak was injured for I think a good bit or part of my freshman year, but I still remember that Egg Bowl because the end zone was still under construction, and it was like literally tooth and nail. I mean, it's kind of like, I don't want to say you can feel tension in the air, but like you really can. I mean, it is a whole nother level of just, I feel like a rivalry in that sense. I mean, because Mississippi, obviously very similar to Alabama, no pro teams are in the state. So all you have is college football. And people get very intense. I still remember Dak Prescott going onto the field in the fourth quarter and seemingly winning the game. They had gold helmets on. I mean, I still remember it to this day, and it was great. My junior year, senior year wasn't the funnest, even though I was on the dance team at the time, because they did not work out as well in our favor, sadly. I still remember you still remember with Egg Bowls, it's crazy. You remember the great ones, and you still remember the ones that just like crash and burn for your side. Most notable one, I feel like in my opinion, and I show it, honestly, I show the flag to my students every year because I always have that one class that won't stop talking about football. Oh, I'm trying to remember the year. I want to say, I don't want to say it was like 2019 or something, but, or I might be confusing it with the one, where Ole Miss player got a flag thrown on him because he did like the whole dog peeing on the hydrant
Oh,
motion
yeah, I
Yep.
remember
and
that.
got the extra point pushed back and then he missed it. That was crazy. I remember being in Florida with my mom's side of the family, watching that on TV and just going nuts, watching that live. But I remember my favorite Egg Bowl moment was from a couple years later, and I'm trying to remember the exact year, but a massive fight broke out. I can't remember if AJ Brown started. Funny enough, I'm an Eagles fan, so found out later. I'm like, oh, he ended up going to our team, which was really ironic. But punches were thrown, and there was a flag thrown on every player from both teams. And I feel like that just speaks
I remember that.
testament
remember that
of the
game.
rivalry. Like to me, I'm like, if I could encapsulate the bowl game, the Egg Bowl in one play, that's it. Like it is so intense, it is so high strung. It doesn't matter if you've been in Mississippi your entire life or not, you get thrown into it immediately. But it's definitely one that is enjoyable. Having that egg, I mean, literally like the biggest bragging rights of the year. We had it several times when I was there, and that was always a blast to be able to have those bragging rights and be like, oh, look, we have it, which is always so nice. I always said maroon and gold just go so nicely together. They complement each other so well, which is a
The
very nice.
complimentary colors.
Oh yeah, but Egg Bowl time, best time. So much fun. And I'm sure you can relate with like the Iron Bowl. It's just, it's so different when you don't have a pro sports team in your state. It just goes that more intense with college rivalry.
Iron Bowl is fun sometimes. Sometimes it's absolutely.
Kick six. Kick six.
I don't talk about it.
Last year almost wasn't fun, and then it turned out to be really fun on the flip side.
Oh my God, let's not talk about that, please. I saw that. I rewatched that clip on YouTube the other day. And I was like, how did this even happen? Isaiah Bond is a
and then, like,
madman.
the year before that, quadruple overtime. I'm just
Mhm.
honestly, I'm sweating. I'm just sweating. It's fine.
I can't wait for the Iron Bowl this year. I hope to God Auburn wins. Anyway,
Anyways, the Egg Bowl, though, I know all of us watch it. None of us are Ole Miss or Mississippi State fans, but it is that kind of quintessential, the day of Thanksgiving. Like you're there, you're watching it, and it always shows out. I think I don't remember in recent years watching one that I was bored. Like it's always been one that's fun.
I was going to say, and of the SEC rivalry games, I believe it's the first in the week being on Thanksgiving, I believe, typically. So it gets the party started that week. So
Hey, now you'll have a reason to root for Mississippi State, just saying. At least pull for them slightly.
Yeah.
Come on, we're so nice.
I don't know. It depends. It depends if it gets Ole Miss into the playoff or not. We might have to see where we're sitting.
it's true.
So, well,
And
I don't
knows?
have any more questions. Do you guys have any more questions?
I think that was my last
don't think
one,
so.
honestly. Emily, thank you so much. This was awesome. Like Matt, I don't know any Mississippi State fans.
She's the only one I know. She's it. She's literally it.
Yeah, I love all the different perspectives, and like I said, we always hear from ours, the three of us, and it's always nice to hear from someone else. So yeah, thanks for coming on for sure.
No problem. I enjoyed it.
You. All right, so that was a pretty awesome conversation, and I think I was telling you guys a little bit earlier in the when we were off air that once we hit the big time and we get a travel budget, we're definitely going to eat at some of those places. So pretty excited about that.
Jesse, I'm kind of curious. Is you usually have a lot of bad things to say about Starkville? I'm assuming your opinions of Starkville have changed a little bit now that Jesse or Emily's giving you a little bit of the inside track.
I mean, now that I know there's at least some good breakfast I can partake in. I'm about it. I'm also, I'm going to be on my best behavior this season. So I'm
Why?
Wow.
I never am.
The retirement of Saban just sort of made you like reevaluate something, or I don't know.
I'm very close to graduation, and
Jesse's out here looking for jobs, so she's being nice.
I have to be careful.
It's a great point. It's a great
Jesse,
point.
it's real easy. Just text me what you want to say, and I'll totally say it.
Notes.
Yeah. Jesse didn't write this to me, guys, but listen, Florida's garbage, just absolute trash, and they're terrible.
Like, Matt, I didn't know you hated that coach so much. It came out of nowhere. So
yeah, I have feelings. I have thoughts.
Yeah. So yeah, and exciting talking about cowbells and all the other. I've always enjoyed, even before we started doing this show, I've always enjoyed the different traditions that different schools around the country have, because it's really cool. Each one has their own story, with its own history and traditions and family history, and who started this, and all the way from mascots to fight songs. It's really cool. It's cool
And
stuff.
Emily told us she forgot to mention it while we were in the interview, but she let us know afterwards that you should not buy your first cowbell. It needs to be
Nope.
gifted to you, otherwise it's bad luck. So if you are planning on attending Mississippi State, you can bring your own cowbell with you, but you should not actually take it in the stadium. Somebody needs to gift it to you.
Give
So
that to you.
don't
Yeah.
bring that bad juju in there.
Right.
I wanted to pass that along for her.
Yeah. If you do, you may be told to get out. So
Or you
yeah,
may be an Auburn fan, according to what she told us.
Yeah.
or that too. Yeah. All right. Well, that does it for our first episode of season 8. So let's go ahead, and I'm trying to find the one that's not as loud. My gosh, how loud is that? There we go. I found it.
There it is.
If you guys,
we're getting the rust off, guys. You got to bear with us for a minute.
Honestly, for the first episode, we were pretty smooth up to that point, so I'll take it. So, if you want to get in contact with us, please hit us up on email at pigskinsandpageantry@gmail.com. We are on TikTok at Pigskins and Pageantry, Instagram at Pigskins and Pageantry, also Facebook at Pigskins and Pageantry. On X, we are PPSEC Podcast. And we're available for download on iTunes, Spotify, Amazon Music, TuneIn Radio, and most podcasting apps for iPhone, Android, and other operating systems. Please, if you enjoyed the show, take a moment, subscribe, review. We'd love those 5 stars. Until next episode, where we'll have another fun topic and hopefully another fun interview. This is Wes. Go Dogs.
I am still in my Nick Saban feelings, but we're slowly working through that through therapy, as everybody should use to work through all your problems. Remember, if you are a student athlete, don't stress out your player development person. They're working very hard for you. Grab our merch and roll Tide.
Look at Jesse pushing the merch. Ding dong, the witch is dead.
How did I
Ding,
forget
ding,
that,
ding,
by the way?
I don't know how you forgot about that. We do have merch. There's lots of merch. Go look at Wes's stuff. He'll have merch intro. That being said, guys, we only got like 4 weeks. We're almost there. So go Vols. Have a good week.